There we go, we're live. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for sparing the time to attend today. Really quickly before we start, I'll just put into the chat the opportunity for people to contribute to a survey that we're doing in the local area, which is really with regards to sort of marketing research, what people are doing, what they've done over the last 12 months, and really to help people in terms of thought processing around, is your business doing the right things? What does it look like? But also as well, just more of a kind of research exercise. We'll be wrapping this up into a formal white paper, but basically anybody that contributes to the research will receive a copy of the report. That's pretty much it. So if you have a few moments and could fill that in, I think it's only like 10 or 11 questions, so it's super quick, but it'd be really appreciated. With that, I have the pleasure of introducing Leslie Fettis from Network Design. And she's here today to talk about how you can really increase your brand reach and really take advantage, I guess, of, increasing that reach and what it means for you and your business. With that, I'm going to hand straight over to you, if that's okay, Leslie. The only thing I'll say is please can you put questions in the chat so that we can interrupt at an opportune moment, as I know Leslie's got quite a lot of content to go through. But with that, I'll pass over to yourself, Leslie.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Ollie, and thanks, Sadie, for asking me to talk to you today. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming along this morning. I am going to attempt to share my screen and we can get underway. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. All good? Fabulous. Okay, so I have the small job this morning of talking about how to increase your brand reach. So I am Leslie Fettis. Best way to remember how to pronounce my surname is it rhymes with lettuce. And I am director at Network Design. We are a full service marketing agency based here in Cambridge. And we like to help brands get noticed. We help companies with their marketing and help them increase their brand awareness and targeting their brand message to their target audience. More than happy to link in with anybody. You can find me on LinkedIn, email, pop me any questions you've got throughout today's session. If I don't get round to answering all the questions in the chat, I will respond personally to anything that pops up today. And our website is designbynetwork.co.uk. There's a blog section on there which does expand some of the areas I'm going to be talking about today, which you might find useful. So let's get into it. So just so we're all talking about the same thing, I thought let's start with what is a brand. So a brand really is about the perception that your target audience has about your business. It's about being distinctive from your competitors, and it's about building a long-term success of your business. There is no quick fix, there is no magic formula, so I'm really sorry if you've come here hoping to be able to purchase a magic wand. But it really is about investing in your brand in order to create that long-term and continued success. A brand can be a product, a company, or an organisation, but for this purpose of the presentation, I'm going to refer to brand as meaning your business or your company. So you'll find that strong brands will benefit from these four things: awareness, credibility, reputation, and customer satisfaction. I'm sure we can all we've probably all got our favourite brands, but here are some of the probably bigger ones that you might know. And for the purpose of presentation, I am kind of going to use bigger brands as examples because I think that you're more likely to know who they are and more likely to be able to resonate exactly what brands are. And I think you'll probably agree that all of these brands, whether they're B2B or B2C, do have that awareness, the credibility, reputation, and customer satisfaction. Sometimes they won't perform well, but hopefully that they do their best as a brand to then pick you up as a customer and carry you on. And we all kind of know what their values are and what they do as a business. And now more than ever, customers today are looking for value. And that really is a case in B2B and B2C markets. Customers will do their research before they buy. So they'll be looking to see who you are, what your credibility is, what you've been doing, how you've been building your brand. They'll look for social proof, so whether they're asking other people about you as a brand, or they're actually looking through social media and other channels to find out exactly who you are. And also, there is quite a lot of importance nowadays put on how you manage your visual identity as well. It's not just about having a pretty logo, it's actually how you actually manage that going forwards as a brand as well, and it's building that brand equity. So all of these really come together to help you build that brand and help you build that business. So your aim as a business should be to build brand equity, to build customer perception, to make them brand advocates of your business, and to build brand loyalty. And as I say, it really doesn't matter whether you're B2B or B2C, the same principles apply. And actually, there has been some evidence that brand is actually more important in a B2B environment than actually in a B2C environment, because businesses will actually look to see what features and what features your products have, but actually brand is one of the things that from their perception that they'll actually rank first, and then they'll look at price. Whereas a consumer might actually look at your product features, price, and then will turn to the brand. So first up, so hopefully we all understand what a brand is. So what is your brand's purpose? Now, purpose really is the foundation that your business should be identifying with. It defines your brand and your culture. It's probably one of the most important principles, and it's really difficult to attract your audience, let alone turn them into customers, if you haven't defined this. So here we have, hopefully you can see it. Here's your kind of foundation of purpose. So your company purpose really is the foundation of your business. And on top of that will come your brand identity. So your logo application, your brand voice, and what your brand messaging is. That then leads into your corporate culture. So the values and behaviours that you portray as a company to your employees. And then your communications. So your communications that are internally, but also those that are external, and the creative output of those. So that's how you're talking to your customers and where your customers are going to come in contact with your brand. So top tip number 1, communicate your purpose, give your brand meaning. And as an example, here we've got Salesforce. So Salesforce, they state very clearly on their website, and you can find it in their stories. Sorry, salesforce.com/company/our story. And they very much detail exactly what their values are, what their core values are, and actually what they do beyond that as well. So they bring people together, and bringing people together changes everything. So from the start, Salesforce has sought to change the world from better through technology that builds stronger relationships between companies and their customers, between employees and far-flung teams, between governments and their citizens, between people who want to make a difference. So they're all about creating this relationship, and they base that on their core values, which are trust, customer success, innovation, and equality. And they also go further using this. They use business as a driving force to create change. So part of their brand is about bringing relationships together and bringing people together, but it's also about change. And they spearhead initiatives into philanthropy, racial equality, justice, climate change, advocacy, ethical and humane uses of technology. And it's all there to be found on their website as well. It's all about them as a business. It's not just about the software that they're developing. So a couple of other examples, 3M. So their purpose is to solve unsolved problems innovatively. They work tirelessly to deliver their vision, which is 3M technology advancing every company, 3M products enhancing every home, and 3M innovation improving every life. Tesla, they're all about clean energy. They want to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy with electric cars, solar panels, integrated renewable solutions for homes and businesses. And Patagonia, they're not just about clothing, they're a role model for a tool for change. And I think, you know, all of these brands, they communicate that purpose, your cause, your values, and quite clearly and succinctly within their brands. So your purpose will set your purpose will set the standard of what you should be communicating to your target audience. So your brand purpose should be communicated internally, so to your staff, they should be on board with it, but also externally to be able to help you build that brand culture. So it's moving on to establishing a strong brand identity or visual identity. So establishing a strong visual identity can help how you're perceived. It's investing in your brand, and it can make you more appealing to your target audience. It will help you stand out from your competitors. It's something that's quite distinctive to you. And it also helps communicate your brand values, as we were just looking at. So a strong brand identity will only work if you have established some basic guidelines for everyone in your organisation to follow. So top tip, oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So do's and don'ts. It is about having brand guidelines and being able to give yourself some rough guidelines to work with. So it's about establishing that strong visual identity, and it's about investing in your identity so people, when customers come in contact with that brand, they know exactly who you are. So top tip number 2, build consistency, create brand guidelines. So some examples of brands. This is a bit of a blast from the past. So the British Rail corporate identity. So this is back from 65, I think it is. But it's a kind of an iconic brand for me, but one that I remember seeing. I used to get the train a lot on platforms and the sides of trains, and it was always done correctly. You never saw it in the wrong colour or the wrong shape. And that was when this was launched in 65. They released 4 binders of how to use that brand identity. It's an awful lot. It took them 5 years to actually release the guidelines, and they did it 1 binder at a time. But what it did was it contained information about how to use their logo, so the logo application, on their architecture and signposting, the rolling stock, the line side equipment, road vehicles, shippers, liners, uniforms, stationery, any miscellaneous items. They really looked at how to apply that brand, and it was, you know, the size of the logo, the colour of the logo, etc. Now this is a complete extreme, and if you want to have a look at it, it's definitely worth a look. It's all been put online, and you can browse through the 4 massive binders. But you don't have to go this far, and you don't have to spend an awful lot of money to have some good brand guidelines. And Netflix is quite a good example of this. Again, I've put the logo up here, and I can share the links at the end of the presentation. But, you know, Netflix have got this iconic brand, and they literally have 2 pages on their website, and it basically shows you the colour of the logo, the position of the logo, and how it should be used. So you don't have to invest an awful lot of time or put huge amounts of, you know, a tomb together. Even if you're a small business, I would really encourage you to have some form of brand guideline on how to use your logo and what the breakdown of colours are. So whether that's your print colours, your digital colours, etc. And share it with everyone you work with. Share it with your marketing agency or your design agency, so your brand is kept true to exactly how it should look. And Netflix also talk about how they use this N, which is really nice, and they explain that the N represents a connection of the never-ending stream of stories to our subscribers. It's simple and iconic, and it instantly sparks brand recognition. And that's what your brand should do. Your brand should sort of state who you are as a brand. Brand guidelines should state who you are as a brand, state your brand purpose, and then your application of your visual identity. Some other good ones to look at. So Audi have got some really nice ones. Again, it's all listed on their website, and it talks about their typography, their type of imagery, how to use their strapline, etc. It's very much more detailed, and it's kind of one of those aspirational guidelines that I think all businesses as they grow should be able to evolve towards. And LinkedIn, again, have some very nice brand guidelines, and they talk about their community that they've created online, and then how to use their imagery and also the illustrations that they use across their social platform as well. So your brand guidelines should cover your brand purpose, your logo, so as I say, the positioning of it, the colour breakdown, so whether that's in print or digital, both, or, you know, if you're using a special colour, your Pantone reference, any type fonts you might use, and these will probably vary whether it's a printed document or Microsoft template, so whether you're using Word, PowerPoint, and what you might actually be using on the web, because you'll be wanting web safe fonts. And then if you're using any imagery, you might want to give some guidance about what kind of imagery you want to use, so whether it's people-led or product-led, etc. So you don't, as I say, it doesn't need to be incredibly detailed, but you need to have some basic guidelines, even as a small business, to be able to keep your visual identity strong. So keep it simple, clear and easy to use, but most importantly, make sure it's accessible to your staff. So your own staff have got access to that brand identity, and they know exactly how to use it. Then this leads into tone of voice. So talk consistently. So even if you have to amend your messaging to work across different formats and channels, writing and content should be easily recognisable as your brand. If you don't have these guidelines, I would recommend you create some. They don't need to be pages long, but just think about the tone of voice that you want your brand to be heard in. Think about the generation that you're talking to. You'll be talking in quite a different way to Gen Z as you would be to baby boomers. And think about, you know, it's not the words that you're using, it's the tone of voice. So how does your brand sound? Are you funny or serious? Are you casual or formal? Respectful, irreverent, enthusiastic or matter of fact? And again, top tip number 3, define your tone, create some tone of voice guidelines, and these can sit side by side with your brand guidelines. Some really nice ones to look at, which again are really succinct and really simple, is Starbucks. So they have evolved a voice that unites their brand and meets their audience's expectations. And what they've done quite nicely is given you these 2 different ways of talking. So there's the functional way and there's the expressive way. And the functional way is basically to communicate to their audience really quickly and easily through signage, through posters, so promoting products. They want it to be functional, not sterile, but keeping it clear and clean. And they give examples of that creative as well. And then there's the expressive content, and this is more about their brand personality and how that works through on a day-to-day basis. And it's the passionate story about coffee. And they give examples again of that, of how that's used across their website or in leaflets, etc. So it is about identifying what that tone of voice is and making it true to brand and keeping it consistent across your communications. So guidelines should set that scene. So again, go back to that brand purpose, what your core and visions and values are, how your brand should sound, what tone are you using, so funny, serious, etc. And then also include things like abbreviations, spellings and grammar rules. So do you hyphenate words? Do you not? How do you use your bullet point list? Do you put full stops at the end of it? Those sorts of things, and try and set out some clear examples as well. And again, this will all help build this brand identity and this strengthen your brand. So remember, tone of voice is not your brand messaging. It is how you say it. It's not the actual words. So moving on, who are your customers? And Ollie and I just had a little brief chat about this before the start of the presentation. You obviously need to know who your customers are, and I find this a little bit chicken and egg. At what point do you start talking about identifying who your perfect customer is? So when we engage with our clients, we really want to understand them as a business, and part of our discovery phase is finding out who their target audience is. So who is it that's buying from you? Can you profile your customers? Can you create a persona? Knowing your target is the most important thing when it comes to marketing your company. You can have the best designed website, the most attractive logo, the catchiest of jingles, but if the right person isn't coming into contact with your brand, then it's very unlikely they're going to buy with you or engage with you. It's quite a valuable insight, and it's quite often overlooked or not given enough time that it needs. And so it's really a good idea to try and put some time aside to actually try and profile who your perfect client is. So top tip number 2, profile your clients, don't stalk them. So brand messaging will have a better rate of success if it resonates with who your audience is. And this is true. So even if you're B2B, you still need to build personas of an individual. Businesses are run by people, people are buyers. So although you're trying to match in terms of business, you still need to attract an individual. So it's about getting your brand, your ethos across to that individual. So whether they're like head of IT or an IT manager, you want your brand to stand out ahead of your competitors. And if you can identify who that person is, who is going to put your brand forward to the board or to the head of procurement, etc., then you're going to have a much better result of converting into being their supplier or their brand of choice. So looking at client personas, I think the best thing to do is look at your current customer base and pick out a couple of individuals across that client base. So who are those people that you're talking to? Who are the people who are already buying from you? And you might want to go from one extreme to another depending on what type of business you have. So you might have a company who spends an awful lot of money with you and a company that only uses you ad hoc. So identify those individuals and then start profiling them. So what are their job title? What are their needs and wants as a business? So are they trying to achieve product efficiency? Are they trying to streamline their manufacturing lines? Are they looking for partners? Do they rate, good sustainability policies? So what are their needs and wants within their job role within that business? And then see if you can identify any of their dislikes or their pain points. And then what their problem is. So what problem are you solving? What can your business or your product do that's actually going to solve their situation? So can you give them something that's going to align with their business goals? Can you give them something that's going to tick their sustainability process and, make their manufacturing line much more cost effective or more streamlined, etc.? Any idea of budget? So again, thinking about maybe that company who spends a lot of money with you and one that doesn't, and maybe look at budget ranges. And then characteristics. And this is something that sometimes the B2B businesses might not delve into. But have a think about, their gender, their location, their age. Try and really paint a picture of them as an individual, not just at the business and the job that they're working in. And any personal interest, whether that's what social media they use, podcasts they listen to, things they come in touch with, things they read, etc. And all of this you can glean from either looking at your existing customer base, but also looking at social media, looking at those customers that are following you. So you might end up with painting a profile of your target audience. So I've got an example here I've just made up off the top of my head, and I'm going to call her Maureen. So she basically works in IT. She's head of IT. She's got dogs. She likes to keep fit, and she listens to local radio. She commutes to work by car, but then she uses Park and Ride to do the last part of her commute into the city. And so from just that little bit of information that you can probably glean from social media, we know that she commutes in a car and she uses Park and Ride. So think about where your brand messaging might get her interest. Could it be, advertising within the bus, on bus backs, on ad shells? She listens to local radio, so maybe positioning an advert on local radio in the drive time slot, early morning slots, while she's in the car to capture her interest. She's got dogs and she likes to keep fit. So is there anything within your business that you can align your brand messages to get her interest in those areas as well? So it's a lot to take in and it's a lot to think about, but it's a really good exercise to try and really kind of profile who your clients are, because it will really help you target your brand message much more and hopefully get it in front of the right person. So building brand personas. helps give you a wider consideration of how to reach your target audience and where those touch points are with your brand. So thinking about Maureen, who's commuting in her car, you know, where is she likely to see your brand? Where is she likely to come in contact with it? And then, you know, you've also got the website she might be on, your targeted advertising, your, you know, Google ads, etc., social media ads and things. But, you know, try and go that one further to your competitors and get that brand in front of her. So moving on, standing out from your competitors. So it's really important to understand how to market your company. And in order to do this positively and to affect your perception, it's a really good idea to consider who your competitors are. So again, it's worth taking a bit of time to kind of list who your competitors are and see how you differentiate from them. So stalk your competitors, follow them on social. What do you think of their brand? What lessons can you take from them? What kind of perception do they have? Do you know? What are they doing that you like, that you think you could do better? And really consider them from that angle and how you can differentiate yourselves, how you can be unique to your competitors. So top tip number 5, brand messaging. Make it memorable, relatable and believable. And we've had some really good recent examples of this in social media. So Weetabix, they didn't go into partnership with Heinz, but they decided to put out some brand messaging. And this was part of a promotional campaign, which they started back in November last year. And this was part of that campaign, which they put out in February. And if you're all on Twitter, I'm sure you would have come across this. So, you know, Weetabix put it out there, you know, why should bread have all the fun when there's Weetabix? I can't read what it says. I've got it stuck behind the all everyone's lovely faces. And it's about, you know, why should serving beans up on Bix? I've lost my train of thought and my words now. So it's, you know, it's about brand awareness. And I must look up, and I should have done for this presentation, to see actually what the sales increases were for Weetabix over this period. But what they did was they've done something that's really relatable and believable. I mean, whether you are going to eat baked beans with Weetabix, it's not really the argument. It's entirely possible you might do, but it's something that's caught people's attention at a time when we were, you know, all stuck at home and during lockdown. But it got them talking, and it got other brands talking about them as well, and it created a real buzz. So Weetabix were front and fore of everybody's mind when it came to probably breakfast cereals. And they also did a little tweet with Innocent as well, saying that milk is so 2020. So, you know, why not have Innocent on your breakfast? And again, you know, Weetabix haven't gone into partnerships with these brands, but they're just showing the flexibility of their cereal, and they're just having a bit of fun with it. And it's memorable because it's relatable. And then Burger King, they were very bold, and they started talking about their actual competitors. And this was at a time to be able to try and, you know, get people buying from takeaway restaurants and help the hospitality industry. And they very boldly put out an ad, which they then featured on their social channels, to say order from McDonald's, Domino's, Pizza Hut, Five Guys, etc., because it's all really important to try and help all these companies keep going. Obviously, these are big brands, and you know, they will have got a lot of traction on their social media. But it's these kind of ideas that can probably really relate well to you as a business as well, to try and, you know, think about the brand messaging that you're putting out there, and how do you make it relatable and believable to your target audience. And then let's not forget the hype about the Super League that we had last week. You know, Heineken were really proactive and jumped on the back of that and said, you know, don't drink and start a league. You know, it's really simple, it's really punchy, but it's riding on the trends that are happening within that moment. And it got them in front of, you know, any drinks brand could have done that, but actually it got them front and central. So do more than your competitors, make your brand more memorable than them. So targeting your brand message, but be very careful. So use the right marketing channels for your brand that will reach your ideal client. So again, going back to who is your perfect client and where do they hang out? Where are they likely to see you? So thinking about Maureen, what social media channels does she use? Is she on LinkedIn? Does she prefer Twitter? Is she in Clubhouse? Think about those things and where that brand messaging is going to be. Hang out where they are, you know, think about where your audience is and be there. So review your social channels and look to see what posts are working. You'll probably find that some posts have got more engagement than others. And why is that? Can you mimic a format from those posts that have had real good success and real good engagement? And don't be frightened to test things. You know, social media is such a changing landscape. You know, put some posts out there and maybe try different angles, or put them on different channels and see what the reaction is. So top tip number 6, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to brand messaging. So think about how your brand is perceived, what channels you're using and who you're trying to target. So a very good example of a company not thinking about how they were communicating is lovely Burger King. So having done their wonderful, you know, buy from our competitors and invest in hospitality and takeaway food, they really bummed on International Women's Day this year. So they put out this simple tweet of women belong in the kitchen. This tweet has been deleted and Burger King put out a statement of why they did that, because there was actually quite a few offensive tweets in response to it, which was why they decided to delete the tweet. But actually, this was actually part of a thread. And if you'd read the whole of the thread, you would have actually understood why they'd led with such a brazen and very, you know, brave stance in that first initial tweet. They had a printed advert which explained exactly what their thought process was behind this. And I'll just read it out quickly to you because obviously you can't really see it there. But so the messaging starts off, so their headline is "Women Belong in the Kitchen." And it states, fine dining kitchens, food truck kitchens, award-winning kitchens, casual dining kitchens, ghost kitchens, Burger King kitchens. If there's a professional kitchen, women belong there. But you can guess who's leading these kitchens these days. Only 24% of chef positions in America are occupied by women. Want to talk head chefs? That number drops to 7%. So there's some really kind of key stats there, didn't even get seen on the tweet. This is where the new Burger King Her Helping Equalise Restaurant Scholarship comes in. It's a commitment from one of the biggest restaurants in the world to help their aspiring female chefs, because every woman with a passion deserves the chance to advance, whether it's in culinary school, a Burger King kitchen, or another kitchen in the world. So there's some really amazing stuff in there. There's those stats that, you know, women are a small minority when it comes to professional kitchens and being head chefs. And they've started up this wonderful scholarship, which they called HER, which stands for Helping Equalise Restaurants. And all that wonderful information was completely lost in that tweet. It was on the tweet thread, but because they'd led with that "Women Belong in the Kitchen" on International Women's Day, they obviously thought it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, being a bit funny, but it didn't resonate well at all. So you've really got to think, you know, how your message is being perceived, what channel you are actually communicating on. So they trended for all the wrong reasons. So my advice to you is don't be a Burger King. One size doesn't fit all. So tailor your brand message based on the medium that you are using to communicate. Thought leadership. Lead the way. So being a thought leader will help add value to your brand. So it's about building trust with your customers and potential customers, and it's about showing how you understand your own sector. And it hopefully turns loyal customers into brand advocates. So top tip number 7 is lead the way, become a thought leader in your sector. So blogging is about adding credibility, and it's about becoming a thought leader. It's showing your visitors on your site that you know your interests, you know your industry, and it adds another level of credibility. So top tips for blogging: try and use plain language, don't use technical speak, and refer to your tone of voice guidelines. Remember how your brand is talking. choose a topic that's going to resonate with your audience, so make it relevant to your industry. It could be an opinion piece, it could be something that's happened in the news, it might just be something that's really helpful content. So it can be really broad, varied subject content when you're blogging. But also trying to give them something actionable, give them something back for the time that they've invested in reading your blog. So, you know, whether it's top tips that they can then go away in action within their own business, etc. Anything that's going to be useful to them for the time that it's taken them to read your article. So moving on to internal branding. So we've talked about brand guidelines, your brand purpose, your tone of voice, and who your ideal client is, customer is. And all of this is about creating a brand culture, and it shouldn't be lost when we're talking about our employees as well. So everyone in your company is responsible for developing a strong brand. So you need to be able to communicate your values to your staff as well. Give them access to branded resources. So make sure they've got access to your brand guidelines and your tone of voice, but also make sure they've got access to your logos and any other digital assets, etc., that they may need. You know, whether you have a library of imagery, illustrations, etc. So give them as much information as you can, make them feel empowered and make them feel part of your brand. So top tip number 8, to strengthen your brand, make your staff your brand advocates. And this is really important because your employees are going to be the ones that come in contact with your customers. So think about, you know, where they come into contact with them. Are they on social media? Do they wear uniforms? Can you brand the uniforms? Are they wearing the right colours? Your signage, is your signage strong in your visual identity? Stationery, letterheads, invoices, estimates, sales proposals, they can all be branded. They can all be, all your Salesforce can be given templates to access and use, which keeps that brand visual identity really strong. Email footers, you know, making sure that your company brand and company details are on that email footer, because they're the ones that are sending things out to your customers. And presentation slides, you know, can you give your staff the tools that they need, equip them with the you know, PowerPoint tools, PowerPoint slides, etc., and maybe a crib sheet on how to use them as well. And this might not seem necessary if you're a small business, but there are things that you should start thinking about having in place moving forward, and being consistent as yourself as a business owner. You know, if it's just yourself, how are you using your brand? Are you following your own brand guidelines? So if this will work, and technology never is kind to me, I will try and play a short 1-minute video. So this is James Watt from Brewdog, and I love Brewdog as a brand, and I had to tailor my presentation back a bit because I would have put Brewdog all over it. But he's really good at investing in his people as well as his brand, and he talks about the 5 goals. And if I can do this. Dun, dun, dun. Will it work? Hold on.
Hey everyone. I wanted to touch base on our top 5s and our cubes. So, Brewdog top 5s are completely open, transparent, objective set of framework that we use across our entire business. It helps make sure everyone is fully aligned and shows everyone how all pieces of the jigsaw fit together. We start off by setting 5 bullet point objectives for the company for a year. This flows down into the business unit objectives, the department objectives, and also the individual objectives. Always in 5 simple, succinct, snappy bullet points. To make this even more tangible, we have the cube. Your cube sits on your desk and it has company, business unit, department, and your own individual top 5s on it in 5 bullet points. You look at it daily to remind you exactly what we're trying to do as a company and how we're going to get there. The cube and the top 5 is a fantastic way to make sure we're fully aligned behind our goals as we look to really take the fight to big beer in 2021. Let's go.
Okay, so you know, he's talking about keeping his staff involved in exactly what they are doing as a company. So they share these 5 goals and they share it with everybody, as he said. And even companies like 3M make sure that their sales reps have basically a bumper pack of resources. And that's not only just about their logo application and the brand guidelines, it's giving them facts and stories about how they innovate their products. And so it helps add more intrigue to potential and current clients, and it reinforces the brand. So it's very much about getting your brand heard and externally communicated with your target audience. But in order to do that really well, it's getting your team on board as well and getting them to believe in your purposes and core values. So make sure your staff know your visions and your values, and most importantly, your purpose, and give them the tools they need to help communicate that. So I am getting to the end. I know I've been talking an awful lot. So homework for everybody. Take a moment and breathe. Think about going skiing and some beautiful fresh air. Clear your heads of everything I've said. But then what I want you to do is basically review, reflect and feedback. I want you to gather up all your marketing materials. I want you to pencil some time this week to go and take stock of your brand. List all your touch points with your customers. Dust off your brand guidelines and tone of voice guidelines if you've got them. If you don't have them, think about starting to create them. And as I said, they can be clear and simple. They don't need to be massive volumes like British Rail had. You know, you can do something very simple and effective like Netflix. Think about profiling your customers. And then looking at all of this, think about what, you know, where are you? How is your brand being perceived, and what can you do to make that better? Can you make your resources available to your employees? So find out what's worked and what hasn't. So from gathering all your things together, looking at your website, your social channels, what can you do to help reflect your brand voice, communicate your brand, strengthen your brand from where you are now, and look to better it. So wrapping up, be true to your brand, invest in your brand. So no matter what you do after this webinar, go and have a cup of tea and a lie down, I think I will. Basically, I want you to be consistent, yeah? Think about what makes a consistent experience. So from having done your homework, having gathered all those, all your marketing materials together, a strong, consistent brand experience is going to give you the following things. It's going to increase trust and familiarity with your customers. It's going to help improve and differentiate you within a marketplace. It's going to build better relationships and improved advocacy. And ultimately, it will lead to more sales and revenue. So what you've got to think about is, if I don't do anything else, just be consistent in what you're doing. It's really important, and it's really worth considering. If you don't act on what you're doing now, you know, is it going to help me? Can I actually, if I act now, can I actually help increase my brand awareness? And as I say, this is true for B2B as well as B2C. This was quite an interesting piece of research that McKinsey did. And they identified that with B2B customers use on average 6 different interaction channels during their purchase decision. And this is B2B. That's almost 2/3, 65% will leave frustrated by an inconsistent experience. So don't just listen to me, listen to them as well. So a recap of the top 10 tips, the roundup. So give your brand meaning, think about what your brand purpose is, create your brand guidelines, have a tone of voice, think about profiling your clients, be memorable, relatable and believable, be unique, stand out from your competitors, and remember, one size doesn't fit all. Think about what medium you are communicating on and adjust that brand message accordingly. Become a thought leader, inspire your customers, build that credibility and trust. Make your staff brand advocates, make sure they've got the resources they need to be able to do justice to your brand. Review, reflect and feedback, but above all, be consistent. Ta-da! There we are. Email me, give me your questions, bombard me, whatever. If you haven't got any questions now and just want to email me later, you're more than welcome. I will talk about brand till the cows come home. So I hope you found that really helpful and useful. And please, yeah, if you've got any questions, fire away.
It was awesome. Thank you, Leslie. There's an awful lot to think about there, and you're 100% right in that I mean, the brand pyramid is probably the best place to start. You know, what fonts do you use? What colors do you use? And then once you've nailed that, everything comes a little bit more consistent from the get-go.
Yeah.
The bit that you failed to talk about there is that Rome wasn't built in a day. Netflix has been going for 20 plus years, right? BrewDog has been going for a decade plus. Zoom has been going for a decade plus. So none of these brands were built overnight. It was just consistently putting brick on brick, right?
Right. Yeah, there is no magic wand. It's about investing in your brand and building that success story, and it will take time, but it will pay off, you know, and you have to start somewhere, so be consistent from the start.
100%. But also as well, it also means you're not trying to boil the ocean. Think about everything from the get-go. There's a great question in the chat from Helen, actually, which was around, you know, when you're in a complex sales environment. I've been in B2B or worked alongside B2B sales people for 20 plus years, and complex sales environments are really difficult to market a brand. Mm-hmm. It's easy to do it with voices on the ground and get people into rooms, but to get to that point, that persona analysis of breaking down each, you know, person that you're trying to sell to and what do they look like. Mm-hmm. How do you apply that to your overall brand strategy?
So it's about that touch point. It's about you know, who is that ideal client? Who are the people that are having to come into contact with your brand, and how are you going to get in front of them? That's ultimately, it's about that touch point. And it's finding unique ways that you can infiltrate that your competitors aren't doing, and it can be really difficult at times. And it's something that, you know, you need to keep doing and keep honing. You know, we ran a campaign for a wastewater company to try and get companies to go to a location in Basildon. And our target market was tiny. It was like a 25-mile radius of Basildon, and it was only for the companies who needed to get rid of wastewater. You know, that's pretty unique. And so we had to find exactly who those individuals are who needed to get rid of wastewater, and then did some direct marketing to them. So yeah, it's really granular. And sometimes it might seem it's too granular when you're talking about big business and business by business, but actually we're all individuals, and we all need to come in contact with that brand and understand what that brand is and why we should buy that brand over somebody else's.
Agreed. I think we had a similar issue, you know, which is why our homepage, the first thing it does is it asks what role or function you have, and then it tailor itself to your pain points to try and talk in the right languages. But also, it's not as easy as saying, okay, this person's the MD, or this person works in marketing, or this person works in sales, because there's uniqueness even within departments. Yeah. I know some of the AI that we've been writing recently looks at behavioral trends to do segmentation based on behavior, which again is, you know, hopefully some next generation stuff. But the net of this, though, is being able to walk a mile in your customer's shoes, right? In each of those buying personas, and understand those pain points. Would you say that was the number one place to start?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And it's about understanding their need and their wants, and then applying your brand to that. You know, and that's where writing blogs are really good, because you can then talk about how you've solved somebody's problem, and then hopefully that will resonate with somebody else. You know, because all businesses should be offering a unique service to each customer, but actually you are generally offering the same service, aren't you? But it's identifying what that pain point is with that client and making them realize that your brand is going to fit that.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is just on that point, because you raise another great question, which is, you know, when you look at uniqueness of business, there are very few unique businesses in the world today. And by that, what I mean is pretty much every example you had has multiple competitors.
Of course.
You know, BrewDog, how dare they turn up into this world full of, you know, many well-established beer manufacturers, right? but actually it was their brand that got them to stand out from the competition. It was the the one thing that changed. Uber is another example of that. Like taxis and black cabs didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
So in a world of competition, it's your brand which is going to become the most important part of how you differentiate, right? So on that basis, sorry, where I'm going with that as a question is, I'm just saying that if you're sat there right now thinking to yourself, I've got 50 competitors just in the local community, it's actually your brand that's going to stand you above the rest, right?
Yeah, so it's very much how can you differentiate yourself from your competitors? What are you doing that they're not doing, or what can you hang your brand on that they're not? So whether that's, I don't know, so like Brewdog, they're two guys who started brewing beer in their local garage, but they've never lost that passion. They're still about craft beer, and they still want to communicate that passion to the rest of the world, which makes them stand out against their competitors. They're still these two guys leading the way. So it's taking stock of your competitors and making your brand is your differentiator, and it's how different is that brand to make you stand out.
Yeah, and the final bit to this as well is that I'd like to just add to that is sustainability is not a add-on to your brand anymore. It's not a kind of, oh, this is a marketing exercise. It should actually be integral. We launched an initiative a while ago so that we're now carbon negative as a business, right? So we're offering marketing tooling in a carbon negative way. And the reason for that is that shouldn't be a differentiator. That should just be part of your business ethos.
Mm-hmm.
And where I'm going with that is, don't think that because you're going to plant a tree, all of a sudden you've got a brand. It doesn't work quite like that. Going back to your point, which is it's the renegade guys sat in a garage trying not to blow it up through producing excessive alcohol, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that sustainability is added value to your customers, isn't it? Customers are really savvy now, and they will do their research, like I said, and they will be looking to see what other things you're doing apart from delivering your service or your product to the business, and you will get points for that. And it might not necessarily be, okay, well, procurement have told me to tick all these boxes. It might not be that box to tick, but it might be that differentiator over other businesses, because you're actually demonstrating that you're carbon negative or carbon neutral, and you're going that much further, and you're shouting about it. It's something to be proud of, isn't it? It's communicated. It's part of your core value at the end of the day if you're doing it. So
what's interesting as well is that the Gen Ys and Gen Zs are so switched on to the sustainability side of life, and also what you as a brand means to communities and things like that. And I'll be honest, in a throwaway disposable culture of social media that they are akin to, the fact that on the flip side they've got this care about your brand and its impact in their local community, again, is something that when you're thinking about what that core of your business looks like, should be very well thought out. Just really quickly, I just want to touch on the messaging bit, because the tone of voice piece, again, is something that interests me. And for anybody that's ever experienced this firsthand, BA and Virgin have a completely different tone of voice, yet they both fly jets. So is it worth touching on how that tone of voice matters?
So I think the tone of voice evolves around what your brand is and how you're portraying yourself. So it is part of that identity. And I think like Virgin Atlantic, they go for very much more a kind of, they went for a kind of playful aspect, didn't they? They wanted to glamorize air travel and make it available to the masses. Whereas BAA is very much more traditional, isn't it? It's very much, we're a professional service. And you can see that in their brands, and that's not just how they talk, it evolves that, doesn't it? It is part of that identity. And I think, sometimes that can be overlooked by companies, or they don't maybe think about it so much. But there is, every brand definitely has a tone, and some will be very much more obvious than others.
But it's also interesting how that then kind of proliferates down through the brand to the point where BA have business class seats, Virgin have upper class.
Yeah.
Right. So they're identifying themselves. And to be clear, I flew Virgin far more for business than I did BA.
Yeah.
Because it was more relaxed, it was more friendly, and it was a different approach to life. But the net of it is, even in the terminology that they used, articulated that tone of voice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you're Virgin's ideal client then, aren't you? What they're saying, they're using the terms upper class, or what BA use world traveller or something, don't they? Or economy plus and things. So you're gonna pull different types of businesses in, or different types of people. You know, you'll probably, if you looked at the executive travel industry and the type of companies that book with BA and those that book with Virgin, you can probably identify very similar, you know, brand ethoses across them. It's not always about price, is it? It's that brand is there to kind of go, okay, well, actually, I want to travel Virgin. What's the price? Okay, well, it's only, you know, it's BA's a few £100 more. Well, I'm going to go Virgin, or the other way around. You know, it's like it's identifying and your allegiance, isn't it? Aligning yourself to a brand and what fits you best.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I align myself to Virgin purely and simply because I could have hundreds of thousands of air miles I can't spend in a post-pandemic world, but that's a completely different conversation.
Something to look forward to, so isn't it? That was, you know, my nice snowy ski scene there. We can all dream about holidays.
Yeah, I think that the way that I can surmise that though is that the BA was economy plus for a little bit of extra leg room, whereas Virgin was economy delight. So
Yeah.
you know, you want that delightful experience, right? Not the plus experience.
Exactly. But you know, again, illustrating their tone of voice, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely that. We are 3 minutes up towards the end of the session. I hope that's been really useful. Personally, thank you very much for coming on, Leslie.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed myself.
So, well, brands are such awesome things, and they could be made and broken quite quickly as long as you know what you're doing. But with that, yeah, thank you very much. As always, we'll distribute around the contact details, and likewise the video from today as well. And if anybody needs to reach out, your contact details are on the screen, but will be circulated around. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. Have a good rest of your day. And Sadie, 2 weeks' time, is that right? Keep me honest. 2 weeks' time is the final session. Is that correct?
Yes, it will be. Yeah.
Awesome.
11th.
I got that right. Sorry.
11th of May.
Fantastic. With that, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.